just to let you know who we have today to talk to over the coming hour or so, we have, of course, the Chief Executive, Robin Hayes, who himself is a Brit, so he's an Englishman in New York, but talking today about entering the market with which he's very familiar from his previous career. So welcome to you, Robin.
Thanks, John.
Great. Next to Robin, we're going to have the Chief Operating Officer and, the President and Chief Operating Officer, Joanna Geraghty. And Joanna's been a regular visitor to these shores at a number of conferences in recent years. So Joanna, welcome to you. And after Joanna, we have Jane O'Brien, another Brit in the team and a relatively recent arrival to the leadership team at JetBlue. Jane is Head of Marketing and Loyalty. And then we have two key technical VPs working in areas that are very much dear to my own heart from my own airline background. We have Dave Clark, VP Sales and Revenue Management, and we have Andrea Lusso, VP Network. So let's kick off and start with the man at the top, Robin Hayes. Robin, I've got to ask you a basic, but maybe a complex question. Why now? Why now to start these two new routes? We're in the middle of perhaps the biggest ever crisis the industry's seen.
Well, thanks, John, and good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone, I should say. It's morning here, and it's raining cats and dogs here, John. So, and it's been raining for the last 4 or 5 days. So we're all thoroughly miserable and fed up. But anyway, this is going to lift our spirits, and I'm very happy to for everyone joining us today. And Maya, thanks for all the work that you put into this. Look, we are very excited. By the way, I will also mention Joanna is an honorary Brit because she went to Sussex University. And for those of you who know Sussex University, I believe it be a place where you learn a lot in a short space of time. And I'm not always talking about the academic side. Anyway, so look, we're very excited. I mean, maybe you can answer your question by doing the deflecting thing, John, a little bit, and just giving people a sense of our history and who we are, because I think that kind of tees up like why now for London. So JetBlue was founded over 20 years ago in New York by our founder, David Neilman. David is a very well-known airline entrepreneur. I think he's up to 5 airlines now that he's founded or be part of. And David's vision was to create an airline based in New York that put the customers and crew members first. When I use the word crew member, it's really the word for employee. And David said, if we build this great airline that puts the customer and crew member at the heart of what we do, we will create a different type of model. And if you go back to the US 20 years ago, it was a pretty tough place. Lots of legacy airlines losing money, lots of strikes, lots of misery everywhere. And so David created a different path. And JetBlue was founded with the mission of bringing humanity back to air travel. And actually 21 years on, we're still doing the same thing. I mean, we've shortened it to inspire humanity. We have the same 5 values that were created in the early days of safety, caring, integrity, passionate, fun. A lot of companies spend a lot of money with consultants coming up with these things, and no one ever does anything differently as a result of them. But actually, David and the founding team created the values before they had a business plan or an airplane on campus. So it really guides what we do. And the reason I just want to mention all of that is that we try to do things differently. When JetBlue took its first flight back in 2000 to between New York and Fort Lauderdale, some would say it's Buffalo, New York, it rolled out the most legroom. It rolled out live TV, although that came a little bit later. No overbooking. We've never overbooked a flight, at least deliberately. Free drinks and snacks. So we really try to create a industry change, but also do it at a low fare. And then just rolling the clock forward 15 years, around 2014, we saw on our domestic markets between New York and LA and New York and San Francisco, another opportunity in a premium experience with our competitors that was poor and a lot, very high fares. It would regularly cost you $2,000-$3,000 one way to fly between New York and LAX in a pretty average business class seat. So we created our Mint experience back then to say we're going to disrupt the premium cabin in the same way we disrupted the coach cabin back in the day. and we've put Mint on sale at from $599 one way. Fares now are about half what they were in business class across the country, and everyone has raised their game with flatbeds and improved experiences. And we're doing now the same for London. We saw the same opportunity, so that's kind of segue back to your question. You know, what we have been observing on the transatlantic for some time now is very high fares. Now, the products aren't bad. You know, the premium products across the Atlantic have definitely improved, but we still felt we had an opportunity to create something better, and most importantly, at a much lower fare. You know, we don't like the way the market has evolved across the Atlantic, particularly in business class, where the big companies get a low fare and everyone else is, you know, grabbing what they can and paying very high fares. The retail tariffs are extremely high. So, you know, what we said is we want to come in and level the playing field, make lower fares and a great experience accessible to everybody. And even in the US today, you know, JetBlue is the only airline that offers free Wi-Fi to every customer, and it's high-speed Wi-Fi. Again, most of the time it works well. Free live TV, and our Mint experience with our choice of 3 different entrees. Well, you know, you could pick 3 from 5. It's more tapas style. Individual cabins that we rolled out on our JFK LAX route. Yes, the 1st of June, which you'll see coming to London. So we've put a lot of, I think, effort into this because we want to come, and London is really the start, but we have 26 airplanes on order over the next 3 to 4 years that will create our transatlantic network. And so we're starting from London, from New York. We will add Boston to London. We will build frequencies to London, and then we'll start flying to other markets as well.
And you are confident. I mean, obviously, you've made it clear you're established, very established in the home market, an airline of many years standing. But you are still going to take a new step across the Atlantic in this very big crisis. And we're hearing all sorts of muddled messages from governments about openings and quarantines and so on air services. And you still feel optimistic this is a good time to start, notwithstanding the strength of the product.
Yeah. You know, actually, I think COVID has created an opportunity for us to start because we wouldn't have been able to get access to Heathrow. We would not have been able to get access to Gatwick, or at least as easily. And, you know, we actually think that there is a lot of pent-up demand. I mean, we're seeing this in our domestic network. And just to give you real data, John, as opposed to, you know, spin and all the other stuff you hear from airlines all the time, our capacity this summer is going to be slightly higher than our capacity 2 years ago. And we don't like flying empty planes around for fun. So we're doing it because we're confident. We are seeing record revenue day after record revenue day. And so we've seen that in the domestic market here in the US for some time. We are seeing it more and more in terms of our international markets to the Caribbean and South America as these markets open up. And we know that as soon as the UK opens up to the US, that we will see the same there. There are millions of people living in both countries who have not visited friends and family for well over a year. And so we think that visiting friends and family traffic will, come out like champagne coming out of a bottle once you've sort of shaken it around. Not that I buy champagne very often, it's far too expensive. But anyway, I think we are very excited. So look, it's a bit of a bet that August is the right time, but we think it's a good bet. Case counts are coming down in the US, case counts are coming down in the UK. We got to open up the borders, and we got to get people flying again.
And again, touching on the proposition in the marketplace, from what you're saying, you're not a Norwegian. I mean, we've seen Norwegian actually now withdraw from long-haul markets. Their proposition was price-led, and it hasn't worked for them even pre-COVID. And on the other hand, you're not an all business only, as in the sense of we previously had a MaxJet, EOS Silverjet. None of those worked for the business only product. Do you see any pitfalls there that you've learned from that you can ensure you don't have those same challenges?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think, a lot of respect for all of those airlines, what they were trying to do. But I think that the biggest challenge most of them had, maybe with the exception of Norwegian, is they had no scale and they had no familiarity either end of the route. They started a flight and it was very hard to scale that. JetBlue is already a very large airline. We're taking delivery of our 275th airplane today, flying from Hamburg into New York. Pre-pandemic, we were flying over 40 million people a year. We're the largest domestic airline that operates own equipment in New York. We're the largest airline in Boston. So we have a very strong following on this side of the Atlantic. Of course, part of why we're here and appreciate everyone's time is to introduce ourselves to the UK market, because there isn't really an airline like us that people can compare us to, because we're going to offer a better product than anyone else that flies today, but we're also going to have lower fares. And the question is, how do we do that? We do that through being incredibly efficient. We do it through our assets fly hard, because the old adage is airplanes make no money on the ground. And we're very focused on productivity and everything that we do. And whilst we don't have the size of a sort of a large legacy airline like one of our competitors, we focus on the benefits of being smaller. So, for example, in Mint, most Brits, I think, their experience of US carriers is pretty poor, right? Poor service, et cetera, et cetera. Everyone who's going to fly in that Mint cabin is going to have hand-picked in-flight crew members from JetBlue. Our in-flight crew members have applied for this position. We've selected them for this position. We've trained them for this position, and that's all that they will fly. And so what we expect, as we've seen in the domestic market, is our customers seeing a US airline that's not just delivering a great hard product, but is delivering a great soft product, which many UK customers have felt has been the more challenging end of what US carriers have offered historically.
And Robin, you mentioned about slots. You are going to fly from Heathrow and Gatwick, but slots, I guess, has been a challenge. I think you have said the slots, at least at Heathrow, are temporary ones. You need to build a product over time in terms of not only the schedule in terms of departure time, but the number of frequencies. Do you envisage that is going to be possible as we go to future seasons?
Yeah, look, it won't be easy, but we're used to doing it and fighting our way in. We have sharp elbows when we need to. I mean, for years, airlines here try to keep us out of DC-8 airport in Washington. We're now 30 flights a day. Airlines try to keep us out of LaGuardia. With our partnership with American Airlines, we'll be up to 50, 60 flights a day by the end of next year. People try to keep us out in Newark. And so we're used to that. Incumbent legacy airlines want to defend their patch. We understand that. So we have to sort of fight a little bit of guerrilla warfare to get in. But we'll do that. It won't be easy. It will take us time, but I'm confident over time we'll be able to build up our footprint in London. Great.
And one last question for now, Robin. We're going to come back to you when we have some of the questions we received from the audience. But one last question to put to you right now. You've recently announced what you're calling the Northeastern Alliance, a partnership with American Airlines. But many people over here may be wondering, what exactly does that mean? Because American, of course, is not only a large transatlantic player itself, but it's a joint venture partner with British Airways. Does that give any kind of conflicts at all?
Well, it's a confusing industry, isn't it? And it's hard to follow sometimes all of these changes. But we entered into this partnership with American Airlines last year because, as I mentioned earlier, JetBlue's biggest challenge has been growing in some of these slot-controlled airports. We have really fought hard over the years to grow in Newark, grow in LaGuardia, grow in JFK, but we've been around only 20 years. We haven't been around 70 years, 80 years. And so we don't have the historic slot holdings that legacy airlines have in these congested airports. So why we're excited about our partnership with American Airlines is going to allow us to grow in the Northeast. It's going to allow us to double our presence at Newark, triple our presence at LaGuardia, and grow JFK. Because American have slots that we now can fly, and we can offer connectivity into their network. And one of the benefits of this partnership is that JetBlue code will also be added to other American flights into Europe. And so again, that's going to give, as we sort of build a following in the UK and the rest of Europe, it will give customers options to fly on JetBlue code, even if JetBlue isn't always operating that piece of equipment.
Great, thanks for that, Robin. Joanna, turning to you as president and COO of a company. I mean, companies can talk about brands, image, marketing, but they are, as airlines, all about people more than anything. You've been around, as Robin said, over 20 years now. The focus seemingly has been on people right from the outset. But tell us, if you would, a bit more about what does that mean in terms of company culture? You call yourself a disruptor, but how do you do that, and what does that mean for the people who actually work for JetBlue?
Sure, thanks for the question. I think Robin touched on it. I mean, we have 5 values: safety, caring, integrity, passion, fun. We live by those values. They're not just words on a wall. If you were to ask a JetBlue crew member what they are, they know them, and they try very hard to live and breathe those values. Every new crew member comes not just through technical training, but through an orientation where senior leadership is there at every orientation to really inculcate them in what JetBlue is about. We're a customer-first organization, and I think we've long recognized that competitors can match the seats, they can match the TVs, and many of them are. They can match the snacks, and they can even get Dig in, which is a restaurant partnership that we have in New York for our core product offering, but they can't match your people. And you can train people very well. Our Mint crew members, as Robin said, are hand-selected and highly trained. They're not put into that position based on seniority, which is generally how other carriers do it. But if they truly don't live and breathe the values and recognize that their job is to serve our customers, then all else fails. And I think if you've flown JetBlue in the United States, that's our unique difference. That's where we set ourselves apart and where we've been able to disrupt. And it's because we've stayed true to our values for the last 20 years. I think one of the things that we're most proud of throughout the pandemic is that we have not furloughed a single crew member. And when you think about what a furlough can do to somebody, their family, losing your job, the ability to ensure our crew members were employed, received health insurance in the United States, that they were taken care of through the pandemic, it means that they're that much more loyal and committed to JetBlue. And that definitely comes through in how they engage with our customers. It's a very different experience. Now, it's not to say we don't have our moments, because we do. It's an airline after all, but for the most part, I think you see a noticeable difference. And I get all of our Mint surveys. We survey all of our Mint customers on our flights to the West Coast. I read all of those surveys. They come into my email box. And what's so unique about those surveys is it mentions crew members by name. And if you're somebody who's used to reading a lot of customer survey data, you realize there's general themes in that type of data, but very infrequently do you see somebody's name. And that happens multiple times on a daily basis. And we try to make sure that we recognize and we reward our crew members when they do stand out and offer superior service. So I think really our people is the most differentiated part of the offering. Jane will get into all of the really cool bells and whistles that I think customers will enjoy on a day-to-day basis, but the people are what brings the caring and what brings the thoughtfulness and the experience to life.
And Joanna, you mentioned, I mean, you look at personally at those Mint surveys that come in, and we did have a chance to have a little conversation the other day, and you were telling me then that the crew, specifically who work in Mint, I think you used the term, they are customer zealots, and you explained just now, your crew selections and movement in cabins is not about seniority. How do you do that? Because I mean, the front end cabin in any airline, I mean, it's not only the biggest potential source of revenue, but the highest expectation of customers. And airlines can either screw it up or they can make a really good job of it. And it really is on a flight by flight experience. Just to elaborate a bit, if you would, for this UK audience, what do you mean about this customer zealousy, if zealousy as a word exists?
Sure. I mean, one of the things we do when we hire and train into Mint is look for people who are committed to the customer experience. So it's not seniority. We look for things like volunteerism. We look for customer compliments from prior JetBlue flights. We have an extensive interview process for these positions with our current in-flight leadership team, along with people who are currently trained in Mint, to make sure that the cadre, which is what we call the Mint team, that the cadre maintains a level of commitment and a level of service. As time goes on and as first class experiences grow, it's harder and harder to maintain that, but we've done an exceptional job because we recognize that's truly a value differentiator for JetBlue. If you look at what we've been able to accomplish out to the West Coast, it's just remarkable. I mean, we fly pre-pandemic more than 80 Mint flights a day to the West Coast, and we continue to deliver that service day in and day out without compromising it. You would expect over a few years, you'd start to see your customer scores drop. and they haven't. And we continue to make sure the product is fresh too. And that gets our crew members excited, because if they're offering the same old thing every time, that gets a little boring over time. But if you keep the product fresh and they're proud of that product and service, whether it's the lie flat seat, the tuft and needle partnership, the great foods, the great wine selection, they can also be proud of what they're serving because they have the right tools to do their job.
And again, on people, Joanna, you're a company that talks about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And now many businesses these days see public value in that, but they don't always walk the talk. Tell us about how that plays out, because it's not an easy subject. It's highly complex and very sensitive. How do you make that actually happen?
Yeah, I think this last year has obviously cast a spotlight on the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion, a diversity of thought around a table, making sure that when you make business decisions, it doesn't reflect the voice of just one person, but the voice of many. And those voices are the voices of your customers and your employees, in our case, our crew members. We've long had a DE&I strategy, but obviously the last year has driven the need to accelerate that strategy, I think, for all the right reasons. And as we take a step back and look at our strategy, the most important thing for JetBlue is to ensure that we're authentic. I think a lot of companies can out there and talk about, we support diversity, we want more female leaders, we want more leaders that are from underrepresented groups. But if you don't have the strategy and the tactics and the plan behind that, it's just a bunch of words. And so we're very, very focused on making sure that when we come out with statements, it's less about the statement, more about what are we doing. A few things we're doing that we're exceptionally proud of. We offer a program called JetBlue Scholars. So it's very expensive in the United States to get an education at a private institution. Many of our crew members haven't been fortunate enough to actually get a upper education. And so we've created a whole program long before DE&I was a buzzword to try to give our crew members opportunities to get a college degree. We've put more than 300 crew members through that program. We're also introducing gateway programs so that crew members who are working on the ramp loading bags or working at check-in can become a pilot or can become a technician, which in the United States are high-paying licensed professions. And that's something that's long been a challenge because the cost of becoming a pilot is well over $100,000 a year with all of the training associated with it. So we're now able to offer that program at a far lower cost and create opportunities for crew members. Most of our frontline workforce, more than half, is actually from the Latino group. And so that enables us to really focus on ensuring that we're tapping into opportunities for our underrepresented groups. And then I think when you pull back a bit and look at our leadership level, we're not where we need to be. I think we're better than most. We've made a lot of progress, specifically on putting women in positions of leadership, but we definitely have to focus on other groups of crew members and making sure that they're adequately represented. But that doesn't happen by just hiring a few people from outside. You need to actually work on creating a robust pipeline of talent. This summer, instead of having an intern program where we bring students in from colleges, an internship program, we're actually going to have crew members from our front line apply for positions within our corporate offices so that they can be given an opportunity to learn what it's like to work in an office. What's an office environment like? What is it like to give a presentation sitting behind a desk? Some I think will love it. Some probably will say they want to go back to the front line. But I think part of this is trying to create opportunities because it's hard to see people as leaders without having kind of been exposed to corporate culture and what it's like to work there. So I think a really very exciting program. We have goals around diverse leadership like many companies do, but I'm really proud of the initiatives we have behind that to make sure that we can actually hit those goals.
Good to hear, Joanna. And on another big issue, which because airlines are always in the spotlight about, is the environment and sustainability. What is JetBlue's view and approach about that?
Yeah, I think the pandemic has cast a light on the need for businesses to mitigate business risk, and sustainability, particularly in the airline industry, is one of the most meaningful business risks. I mean, pre-pandemic, you had the flight shaming movement. As we exit through the pandemic, this has not fallen off the front page of the newspapers, and so we know that we need to be as focused on this as we are on our other initiatives. Our goal is to achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2040. We were the first airline to offset carbon emissions for all of our domestic flying. We have an entire set of programs designed to achieve net zero carbon emissions. They include everything from flying more fuel efficient aircraft. It includes operating aircraft with sustainable aviation fuels, Asterisk, there's definitely a challenge there with supply and demand. All of our flights out of San Francisco are currently operated with sustainable aviation fuels, but we need to broaden and expand that, and there needs to be a coordinated effort on the part of the industry. We're investing in new technologies. I encourage you to go look at Joby Aviation. It's a super cool company with electric aircraft. One of our leaders is over there right now doing amazing things. And then as you just think about what we cannot reduce in terms of actually reducing emissions, we also offset. So the two work hand in hand, and we invest in a number of programs that support the environment in those ways as well. So, we think we're on the right path. We can always do more. Very excited about the initiatives that we do have. And fundamentally, this is going to have to be an industry movement to really, I think, make the progress that we all want to make, particularly around sustainable aviation fuels.
Great, thanks, John. And you touched on the aircraft, importance of efficient aircraft. Tell us also about the aircraft that's going to be used on this route. I mean, the Airbus family is going to be very familiar to most of our audience, being widely used across Europe. But the A321 LR, not only in terms of its technical capability, but just the point that it's a narrow-bodied aircraft. We don't hear so much at the moment about narrow-bodied aircraft on relatively long-haul flights.
Sure. So it's a narrow-body aircraft. We're going to have 24 seats in Mint, 30 in Even More Space, which is our Even More Legroom offering, and 84 in Core. I like to think of it as a private jet experience. It doesn't have the lengthy boarding process you would have on a wide body. I think it's a much more manageable aircraft. And I think most importantly for JetBlue, we don't need to fill a wide body aircraft with all those seats in the wintertime. So it gives us the ability to make sure that, as we schedule these planes and build out the schedule for them, that we have a robust schedule. But most importantly, I think, is a really unique private, almost a private airplane offering. Jane will get into the details, but you really do feel like it's a personalized experience for you. We've got 13 LRs on order and another 13 XLRs, which will give us range well beyond where the LR will go. So I think you can start dreaming about other destinations that JetBlue may serve well beyond London specifically.
And just a quick one, I couldn't miss the opportunity, sadly, to come back to the preoccupation of all of us right now, Joanna, about the COVID pandemic and your company approach to safety. And if you could maybe just throw a few words in about overall focus on operational performance. And you mentioned all airlines have their day, flights do get delayed and cancelled outside of pandemics. Tell us about how you're dealing with a pandemic from a safety point of view and how you deal with service recovery.
Sure. So the pandemic has obviously rocked the industry. Very proud of the work of the JetBlue team and how we led in the United States. We were the first carrier to require customers to wear masks. One of the first carriers to offer disinfectant wipes on the aircraft. But as we've moved through the pandemic and learned how the virus is transmitted, we've gotten smarter about our safety from the ground up program. Obviously, mask wearing is a critical component of that. I think we're all much more comfortable with the controlled cabin environment. The HEPA air filters are very effective at stripping out all viruses, including the coronavirus. And if you actually look at the data, and even in our own JetBlue data, very, very few cases involve transmission on an aircraft. People go to restaurants, people go to grocery stores. An airplane is just as safe, if not safer, and I'd argue far safer than many of those other locations indoors that you may spend time in because of that controlled cabin environment. Obviously, stepping up our cleaning practices, all the things that you see many carriers do. And this is an area where we try not to compete with one another. We try to work together and try to come up with programs that really make sure that everybody understands how safe flying is as a mode of transportation throughout the pandemic. In terms of operational reliability, this is something we're very used to. We fly in the most congested airspace in the United States compared to any other U.S. carrier. So we're very effective at managing delays and managing disruptions. In the United States, we were the first to introduce what's called a Bill of Rights, which provided customers compensation, and that was well before the EU delay regulations. And so I think very proud of that moment, and we continue to make sure that that speaks to what customers want and need when there is a disruption, because their needs are a bit unique sometimes. We fly to over 25 foreign destinations, So we're very familiar with some of the challenges flying into foreign locations and working with different governments. And we've got the right team to do this. Everybody at JetBlue is so excited about the launch to London. This is a real beacon of hope, I think, not just for our JetBlue crew members, but for so many of our JetBlue customers who have been looking forward to flying to London. It's the most underserved market that JetBlue does not fly out of JFK in Boston. And so very excited to launch it and very confident that you'll see not just the great customer experience, but the way we operate in New York and in Boston and in London, I think will be very, very competitive with how others do it, if not better.
Great, thanks, Joanna. I'm sure we're going to ask you a few more questions when we have a broader Q&A at the end of the session. Jane, coming on to you now on the product. Joanna already alluded, indeed Robin too, to a number of the delights which customers can expect on JetBlue. Just tell us a bit about the brand as you see it. And again, you're relatively new to the company, so I'm sure you're bringing different perspectives as someone who is a recent joiner. Tell us broadly about the brand, if you would.
Hello. Well, first of all, good afternoon, everyone. Good to talk to you all here from New York. So yes, John, you're right. I'm actually no longer what is called here a baby blue. And a baby blue is when you first join, your first 12 months, and a lot of time and effort is put into exactly what Joanna just described, of understanding the business, our culture, and our values. But yes, I have the great privilege of leading the team that manages the JetBlue brand, the product, and the marketing. And we have a brand that really at our core is about bringing fantastic customer experience at a fantastic price, and that's what we're going to be doing across the transatlantic as well. With we're well known here. We've got a fantastic product in both Mint and Core at quite frankly much lower prices than one would expect from traditional legacy carriers going across the Atlantic. And our brand is about it's about democracy in all respects. So no matter what you've paid, you should be able to expect a great experience. There shouldn't have to be a trade-off there. So, John, shall I tell you a bit about the products in detail?
I was going to say, let's go into the detail. I mean, let's
Yeah.
start off with Mint, because I mean, it just sounds crisp and sharp, doesn't it? The name. So even you don't know what it is, it sounds enticing. So let's learn a bit more about Mint first of all, Jane.
Yeah. So Mint is our premium product, and you heard Robin reference that we launched it back in 2014. We introduced it initially on the transcontinental markets here in the US, and it has been an outstanding success. And we've recently made it even better from a product point of view, particularly for coming across the pond to London. So we've made every seat a suite. Inspired by the product that we currently have on transatlantic. We have on transcontinental. We have 4 private suites on the flights here. Now we've made every seat a suite across the pond. There's 24 individual suites, each with their full privacy, with their own sliding door. It's a 78-inch fully flatbed. Lots of incredible features, lots of thought goes into developing our product. Lots of nooks and crannies for storage. You've got a huge 17-inch seat back screen, lots of wireless charging capabilities, lots of in-seat power. And I should mention our latest innovation as part of our individual suites. We're introducing what we call the Mint Studio, and that's the front row, the first 2 suites on the aircraft, which offer really quite an outstanding experience and more space in a premium suite than any other US airline. So it's actually also a fully flat bed at 78 inches, but at its widest point, it's 45 inches wide. There's also extra room where there's a buddy seat, so you can invite a friend to come and have a chat or come and eat. Your seat back screen, I hesitate using the word screen because it's huge. It's 22 inches. So it's really an area to work, to sleep, to do whatever you want, like as if you were, on the ground, work, play, eat. I must also just say a little bit more about the thought that's gone into the detail of the comfort of the bed. So we partnered with Tuft & Needle, and Tuft and Needle and their award-winning mattresses, and we've put Tuft & Needle adaptive foam into every seat. So you're really getting the proper comfort as if you were sleeping at home in your bed. And with that, we're bringing the Tuft & Needle sleep kit, the pillow and the blanket, and the blanket's got a nice little detail of the built-in foot pockets so that you can sleep well and that blanket doesn't fall off. In terms of the dining, I mean, it's the same for our Mint products as well as in Core, is, you know, we really take great pride in who we partner with, and we've partnered here with the Delicious Hospitality Group, quite well known here in New York. They're acclaimed New York restaurants, Charlie Bird, Legacy Records and Pasquale Jones. They're known very much for their fresh and innovative menus and also the world-class wine. And the music that they play in the restaurants as well. And we've worked with them. They've designed our menus, the choices that you offer, that we offer you will also see in their restaurants. They've curated the wine choice for us as well, and the cocktail program. So really quite a fine dining experience for Mint, with our own special way of delivering that as well. You know, with, as Joanna talked about, sustainability, with all of the products, the serviceware that you'll see on board our aircraft, you know, we've reduced the use of plastics wherever possible. We've ensured that we've made thoughtful decisions about the packaging, the sourcing and the manufacturing of the products that are on board. So that's you know, very exciting to be able to introduce to you our Mint product.
And so, how about the economy cabin, Jade? Well, you call it core product.
Core, we do.
I've looked at it. It is different in quite a number of ways to perhaps what people would expect on a long haul flight.
That's right, John. And it's back to our philosophy again, that we put focus on a truly fantastic customer experience at a great price, regardless of what a customer has paid. So, you know, we've given the same amount of thought to core, which is what others will call their economy or coach cabin. So let me first of all start again with the food. Now, what you're not going to get from JetBlue is your standard, do you want chicken or beef? So again, when we were developing the meal service here, we wanted to do something a bit different. And we have partnered with, we have another restaurant partner that we've worked with in Core called Dig. And Dig are a well-known, again, chain of restaurants here in New York, Boston and Philadelphia. And we partnered with Dig because their belief is founded on that everyone deserves access to a great meal and great food. And Dig prepares simple vegetable-forward menus. It's not just a vegetarian menu, though, that we're providing, and almost more choice for customers. Build your own model of what you want to eat from your main course and your side dishes. And that's what we're going to be bringing to our in-flight experience in Core, is basically build your own meal from a choice of proteins, grains, vegetables, mindfully sourced from partly from Dig's own farm, Dig Acres, and also other minority and women-run farms as well that we're working with to source the breakfast, the lunch, or the dinner options on board. All the dishes that we use are earth-friendly cutlery, reducing the environmental footprint. And of course, with the meal service, there'll be complimentary beer, wine and liquor. And we also have a pantry with self-service snacks. I do want to talk about a couple of other things that we're well known for here already in terms of our core experience. And that's, first of all, space. We are known for offering more space on board the aircraft, not just in our premium cabin, but also our core economy cabin. And we've partnered with, obviously we've got an Airbus aircraft, but we're using with a launch customer for Airbus's airspace interiors on the A321. So it feels more spacious, larger overhead bins, mood lighting, quite unique. So the whole ambience feels quite boutique-like. Now, Joanna referred to number of seats that we have on the aircraft, but just want to pull out as well, we've got 90 core seats at the 32-inch seat pitch, but we've also got what I'd like to introduce everyone to, what we call EMS, even more space. And those are the front row seats in the core cabin, where you get 35-inch seat pitch. So there's lots of room, in not just the way that the aircraft is designed, but also the leg room that you have. The next point we're also well known for, that you're also going to experience across the transatlantic, is we're known for our free and fast Wi-Fi that we call Fly-Fi. Keeps you connected across the pond. We will be the only airline to offer unlimited free high-speed Wi-Fi on all transatlantic flights. We will have 5 channels of live TV, CNBC, CNN International, BBC, Sport 24 and Sky News. We also have obviously hundreds of movies, hundreds of binge-worthy TV shows and seatback gains. So, you're in for quite a treat wherever you are going to be on the aircraft. Awful lot of thought gone into curating the experience, both in core and in Mint.
And Jane, just on that dig concept, I've seen some photos of it. How do you do that menu build up? Do you actually choose that from the seat back screen?
Thank you. Yes, John, you do. Thank you for raising that point. So another new feature will be that customers will be able to actually see a lot more of what the menu choice is when they get on the aircraft on their seat back screen. So instead of having to peer down the aisle and look at what is being given out, or it's a cardboard menu, you can explore what all the food options are on your seat back screen and make your choices and preference and order them. And that goes straight through to the iPads that all our in-flight crew members have. They will therefore know what you've ordered and be able to deliver your choice and options directly to you. Obviously, if a customer doesn't want to do it that way, you can obviously ask the in-flight crew members as well.
Great. Now, it all sounds exciting, but as we've said, you're known in the US, you're not known far and wide in the UK as yet. How do you plan to bring this message to the UK market ahead of startup and indeed during the early months?
Yeah, so we will be launching a marketing campaign the nearer we get to the inaugural. So from the summer onwards, we'll be talking to the UK market and customers a lot more about who we are, what our product is, and just to reveal a few more details about our loyalty program as well, which is TrueBlue. And our important customers can join the TrueBlue program and become a mosaic the more you fly. And we've been leading the industry with a customer-centric approach to points never expire, always available redemptions, points pooling for families, and so on. So we'll be bringing all of this information, our product, our service, who we are, and introducing ourselves in a true JetBlue way through a campaign that'll start very soon and build up to quite a lot of buzz and magic and sparkle in August.
Great, Jane. Thanks very much. I'm sure there'll be a couple more questions for you coming up shortly. Let's just look now at the nitty-gritty of the schedule with Andrea Lusso, VP Network. Andrea, we talked at the beginning about the question of frequency. I guess at this point, you're just pleased to get a daily consistent frequency into both London airports with Heathrow and Gatwick.
Thank you, John, and good afternoon, everybody. Yes, as you've heard before, JetBlue, we pride ourselves in being disruptors, and really, in order to disrupt the market with this amazing product that Jane talked about and these competitive fares, you start with one flight, and that is what we're doing. Clearly, the pandemic has required airlines, including JetBlue, to make adjustments to order books, but we're very, very excited to launch our flights to London on time as we promised that we would. And I'm quite pleased actually with our initial plans to open up both airports in London and really focusing on JFK as our launch markets. We have much bigger plans, and I'm sure you will probe me on that later on. But we're very excited to start with the multi-airport strategy approach. That's something that we've been doing quite successfully here in the US. We do it in New York, we do it in LA, we do it in Florida. It works extremely well. I would also say that we are very successful at serving leisure and VFR, which is visiting friends and relative traffic. And given the stage in demand recovery where we are in, we think this is the right approach to launch. But look, in Boston, for example, we do tend to cater more to corporate and business travelers, and we absolutely understand that frequency is important there. Having a good schedule option is absolutely a must-have in order to compete. And we know that one flight a day won't cut it. We know that 2 flights a day won't cut it. you have, I think, a lot of committed folks over here who are looking forward to growing that schedule going forward. I would say before that, just a quick note, what is more important than schedule options? It's reliability. That is true for all customers, especially business customers. And that's why a lot of thought has gone behind our launch plans and why we're focusing on one city pair and why we're taking a lot of steps to ensure that we are ready to launch, a lot of testing, a lot of proving runs, both for the customer experience side and the operational side and the safety side, to really make sure we make a big splash and we don't rush into things. So that's been our main focus so far, but we definitely do plan on growing the offering to all airports on both sides of the pond with a very competitive schedule.
And in fact, you've got, I think it's 13 A321 LRs in the fleet or coming into the fleet, and obviously you're only using a fraction of those at the moment to their full capability. So I guess that does beg a question that there will be plans for further rollout, not necessarily only in London, but more widely in the future on the network.
That is right. We have 13 of the LR aircraft, and as Joanna mentioned, we have another 13 of the XLR variant, which will take us even further beyond. We're not going to speculate quite yet about where we're going exactly, but I will say that we are fully aware of the sheer market size of London as a market to New York and Boston. And again, this is really New York and Boston strategy for us. So we will follow the needs of our customers and the opportunities as they arise. But I think the platform of the narrow-body aircraft gives us a lot of flexibility, and that's great. And it's something that we see as a great competitive advantage, being able to flex up and down the frequencies, providing a good schedule without necessarily having 400 seats to fill on each time of day, each day of week, each month of the year. So we're excited to use that platform. Like you said, we have a lot of room for growth.
And are you planning on the initial one frequency to maintain at least a minimum of one a day into certainly initially the two chosen London airports throughout the year? Because of course, classically, North Atlantic, even a market like New York, London, does have a seasonal element to it, and a winter can, and has proven for some airlines to be a bit of a graveyard.
That is fair. Look, we're very confident in our launch with these two daily flights. So I think for the foreseeable future, we will absolutely plan on serving the market on a daily basis. That's something that is a commitment we make to a lot of important key routes in our network. As we continue to grow the fleet and the frequencies, again, the plane gives us that flexibility. It's a great transatlantic platform, but it doesn't just do that, right? It can also be redeployed according to what the needs of our customers are, and the demand tends to follow. But again, 140 seat, the private jet experience that Joanna described, that gives us a lot of comfort and confidence that we'll be able to sustain this in the slower seasons. We will have sort of the great benefit of the JetBlue network and connectivity in JFK and Boston, where we serve a number of key routes. So you think about the West Coast, Los Angeles, San Francisco, you think about Florida, you think about upstate New York. There's a lot of options for our customers to access the market.
And I guess, although that may not be fully realizable initially because of the nature of the schedule, that's something that will become an increasing part of the business as we see the schedule develop, along with your new Northeastern Alliance feeding into some of the AA connecting possibilities as well in due course.
Sure. So on the Northeast Alliance, our transatlantic venture is actually meant to be fully independent. We really want to be the disruptive force in the market that you've heard so much about from my colleagues so far. So we're trying to be independent, and we will be completely independent on that, as we think that's a key factor for the JetBlue effect, that stimulation in the market. But in terms of connectivity with the JetBlue network, yes, that will absolutely grow. So with our current frequency at 1x daily, again, we focus on sort of those big destinations where we fly, 5, 6, up to 10 flights a day. Those large O&Ds like LA, San Francisco, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, Orlando, Boston, of course, until we launch with nonstop service. But then as we add frequencies and we fill in the schedule and create more options for early evenings, maybe daytime flying, that will simply unlock the full JetBlue network.
Great. Thanks very much for now, Andrea. Dave, turning to you, you've got a dual remit here, both with sales and revenue management. Let's just ask you a bit on that latter point about the pricing. How are you going to set the price points on Mint? Obviously, we know they're going to be substantially lower than some incumbents, but are you going to have some promotional fares, normal fares, restricted ones if you book in advance and so on? And are you going to be expecting to duck and dive in a marketplace on that as competitors respond to your arrival?
Sure. Thanks, John, for the question. Good afternoon, everyone. As mentioned before, JetBlue's mission is to not only inspire humanity, but to do so by bringing a better product at a lower price. So a lower price is a big part of our value offering and what we do. We're really focused on everyday low fares. Yes, we do have promotions, but we're not an airline that you want to wait for the promotion because that's when the really good deals are. We have good deals every day. On the Mint experience, we've really brought a drastic price reduction to the market. If you look, especially, it's most extreme at the sort of close-in booking walk-up fare side, where we've really cut the prevailing fare by half. On a round-trip basis, our walk-up fares are in the sort of 4,000 to 5,000 pound range. Again, on a round-trip basis, that's all in, including taxes and fees, which we know are significant. And that's about half of what the other guys have been charging. So really big discounts there. At the very lowest end of the economy fares, we're currently selling a fare right now less than 1,300 pounds all in round trip. That's several hundred pounds lower than what the other guys are selling. There are certainly some fences where closer in or different stay patterns will have different pricing, and further out purchases and more leisure patterns will have lower pricing, just given the ability of those customers to afford the ticket. But in general, nice low fares are a big part of our value proposition.
And within the Mint cabin as well, will there be differentiation with this front row suite that Jane was describing? Because that seems to offer an even further product enhancement. Assumedly, that will have a differentiation.
Yes, absolutely. So in the Mint cabin, as mentioned, there's 24 total seats. 22 of them are our normal suites, and then 2 of them are our Mint studios. They're in the first row. We're currently selling those for, in US dollars, it's $299. It converts to pounds. It's about 215 or so pounds right now. It is a phenomenal experience. It just started flying on June 1st domestically within the US. It's already been called the best seat in the sky in the United States. It's absolutely phenomenal. So really worth flying. Whether you're traveling alone and just wanting more room, or if you're traveling with someone else, there's enough room to have them sit there with you, whether to work or to have a meal. So it's a really exceptional offering.
Right. And in the core cabin, I mean, we know a large amount of North Atlantic travel is price driven. We were just mentioning earlier on the challenge of many airlines, including Norwegian, to actually succeed there. And we're also aware that you're offering a much better product in terms of the space and all the inclusive elements. What's your approach going to be to the core pricing, Dave?
Sure. It's really the same philosophy as Mint, better product at a lower price. Our prices are about 50 pounds less than what was selling before on a round trip basis. You get more legroom, get much more on board, comfort and amenities and entertainment. So we feel really strongly about the product. We expect to fly high load factors. That's what we do. We want customers on board, trialing JetBlue, experiencing the product and telling their friends and family about it.
And in terms of the even more space, is that similar to what you described about the front row suites? Is there going to be a differential pricing on those seats?
There is, and on the core side, we have even more sort of options for customers to customize their experience. So one is the seating. We do have even more space seats, which are, depending on which seat it is exactly, are a buy up that any customer can select, and that gives you an extra 4 inches or so of legroom. But then in the core cabin, we also just have 3 different fare types. There's the standard JetBlue fare, we call it the Blue fare, which comes with things like a free checked bag, no change or cancel fees, free advanced seat assignments. That's our sort of standard fare. We also have a lower cost fare that we call the Blue Basic fare. That's for a customer whose number one priority is price. It comes with much less, but it is the lowest price. It's the lowest price that we will charge. But there's certain restrictions, like if you want to change or cancel, there's a fee. It does not include a checked bag. You have to pay extra if you'd like to select a seat before check-in. So there are some restrictions, but for some customers, that's what they want to get the lowest price. And then we have a third option called Blue Extra, which you pay a little bit more for. It's an extra 25 pounds. And that's for a customer who's really looking for speed and convenience. It comes with things like expedited security line, first to board the aircraft. And then on routes where we have multiple flights per day, you can actually on the day of departure switch between flights, not only for no fee, but for no difference in fare. So it's great for customers who need speed and flexibility.
Right. And on top of those different fare options, Dave, I mean, is ancillary revenue, non-ticket revenue going to be an important part of your thinking? I mean, I'm just thinking, what else is there to buy? Many of these things actually are included. You're not taking a chance to monetize certain elements.
Sure. We want customers to have the options to tailor the experience to what they want. It's really about customer customization. So there's a lot of different options. We've mentioned seating. Obviously, baggage is another thing you can add a la carte or not. If you'd like to check 1 or 2 bags or even more, there's those options. And then on board, there's a whole host of things you can buy. In core, that might be alcoholic beverages, it might be a blanket, a sort of headset, things like that. On Mint, all those niceties are included.
And turning to your other hat in your role, the sales side, I mean, you're a new entity to the UK travel trade. What is your approach going to be there?
In short, we plan to work very closely with the travel trade in the UK. We are in all 3 of the major GDSs, so we have connectivity provided that way. In the US, we have a very high direct strategy where we're very well known and most customers come to JetBlue.com, but we understand the UK is a different market. We're introducing ourselves and that it's a much highly focused travel trade market. So we're doing things in the UK we haven't done other places in terms of working with travel trade very closely, in terms of we even have Discover the World helping us as our general sales agent. So there's a lot of things we're doing to really tailor our approach to the UK market and ensure we're as effective and as accessible there as we possibly can be.
And I guess in terms of channels of sale, it's going to be multiple because there are individual customers who book directly, others, especially corporate travelers who work with their maybe in-house in-plant agents and so on, Dave.
Absolutely. You can find us on JetBlue.com. You can find us on with your favorite travel agent, on the OTAs, with tour operators and whatnot. We'll be fairly widely available in the most popular sort of channels and agents.
And Dave, is there anything else you want to add about working with corporates? I mean, one of the key things is pricing. Corporates with some of the existing airline groups have maybe corporate deals, but you're starting from a lower price point from the outset.
Correctly, and this is one thing we do have a lot of experience with, which is working with corporates. We do that very regularly in the U.S. So we've been growing our relationships in the UK with the corporates. Some of them we already know because of their presence in the US. Some of them are new partners to us, but absolutely working closely with corporates and their TMCs to ensure that they and their travelers are aware of all the options on JetBlue, the great features it includes, and how to book with ease.
And I see one of the questions we had pre-submitted from one of the audience members was, will you be joining a corporate membership scheme or offering your own?
In terms of, I'm not sure the exact of what you mean. We have the JetBlue loyalty, and then we'll do sort of a corporate by corporate relationship to tailor it in the best way possible for that.
Okay. And by the way, just apologies for me about the technical glitch, but I think actually it shows again, we're using technology in the last year, but this is exactly why you need to be flying directly to New York and from New York and ultimately Boston with JetBlue, because you can get a much more reliable interaction with meeting somebody face to face and on one of the JetBlue's flights in the coming months. So we won't have to rely on technology quite the same way we do today. Well, that is an overview from all of the team members we have here today. We've got 1 or 2 more questions and maybe some points we want to come back to that come out of the session there. Maybe another question actually for you, Dave. It's quite a technical question, but I hope that you're the man to answer it. Somebody in the audience has asked, what is JetBlue's view about NDC, which for those who are maybe not travel trade is the new distribution capability being backed by IATA in this digital age of distribution. What is your view as JetBlue? Is that something you're actively involved in?
Yeah, JetBlue is very supportive of NDC. We have, over the past couple of years, done a number of POCs and trials with it. We're not yet ready to roll it out to the UK market, but that's just more a matter of timing. So for now, we're available in the GDSs, but I do expect over time that NDC connections will be available as well.
Great, thanks very much. And Joanna, coming back to you, if I could, you talked a lot about the safety from the ground up culture, and we're still dealing with this ongoing pandemic. But one particular question that somebody put was, do you plan to support the international travel recovery, working with the use of digital health passports, such as negative COVID test results, vaccination status, and so on, either through your own app or working, for example, with industry bodies? We see IATA, for example, doing a lot of work with the travel pass.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have been kind of at the forefront of some of that during the entire crisis. So we launched a POC with a group called Common Pass, part of the Commons project. So currently we're using a health passport tied to testing for flights into Aruba, which is down in the Caribbean, and it's been incredibly successful. And one of the things that we've done in coordination with the government in Aruba is to offer fast kind of access through immigration when you arrive, as a way of incentivizing customers to download the Common Pass app. Ideally, all of that becomes integrated into the JetBlue app. I think there's a couple things there. First, customers want to know what the rules and regulations are. IATA does a great job with Timatic on that front, so we'll likely leverage that. And then we're currently doing a number of additional POCs, Common Pass and others, around uploading testing information and then vaccines. There's not actually a global standard for a vaccine kind of footprint. So working with a number of companies on that, including, IATA's in the mix, IBM, Common Pass, and another few others. So we think it's an important part to just make it easier for customers. We don't expect that, at least in the very near future, there'll be sort of a common global standard. There's a number of different companies out there. Something might emerge over time, but focus on trying to make it as easy for customers and an easy IT integration.
Absolutely, got it. And another question, and I think this might be perhaps jointly Dave or Andrea. Someone is asking, what has been the initial reaction since flights have gone on sale? Are you seeing interesting indications coming through in bookings, either maybe from some of your own loyalty card members, TrueBlue members, or others at the present time? Is it giving any clues on interest level here in the UK?
Sure, great question. I'll take that one. I'd say the initial interest has been quite strong, especially sort of given where we are in the COVID recovery and travel restrictions. We had a really great first few days of sales, accomplished what we'd been looking for, have a nice base of load factor on the flights. We're actually now for London, our load factor for August and September is equal with the rest of our system. So that's great. And we've already caught up even with going out for sale relatively close in. We're now, I think, all waiting for the UK travel corridor to reopen. We think that'll be the next big catalyst in terms of sales. So looking forward to that. And just we think demand will continue to come in quite nicely when the corridor opens.
And I guess, again, that will be influenced also by when you get to the autumn, which ordinarily will be a stronger time for business travel. We're going to have a bit of a lull through the summer. So it's certainly encouraging to hear you've seen those signs already. Just coming back to the question about slots, Robert, if I can land you with this one. Somebody's asking a question in the context of business travelers. They're saying, are the slots short or long term? I think we have covered this already at the moment, but if they're long term, will there be more than one service a day? Again, Andrea gave some answers, because corporates need certainty, and the served airport is part of the evaluation process for considering JetBlue as the choice of travel versus incumbents.
Yeah, no, thanks, John. Before I do that, I need to do some translation because, I think what I think a lot of us know is that there are many words that mean different things in American English and English, and Dave just used one. So Dave said quite good. Now, what that means in English is very good. But when you hear quite good, it means not so good to someone from Britain, Dave. So we're working on that, by the way, John. There's lots of other examples.
We can table this conversation for later.
And that's a good one, because when an American tables a conversation, it means they stop talking about it. Whereas in England, when you table something, you're putting it on the table to discuss. Anyway, lots of fun there. Back to the slot question. Yes, our Heathrow slot is temporary, so we continue to pursue a number of angles to make sure we can stay in Heathrow, which is a priority for us. And then the Gatwick, our position at Gatwick is permanent, and so hopefully that sort of clarifies where we are.
Great. And as Andrea alluded, whether it's a New York market or London, catchment areas are large. There are multiple airports. I'm just mindful of some of the people I've seen on our guest list today, Robin. There are more than 2 airports in the London catchment, if you get my drift. Anything you want to reflect on in terms of your knowledge of the broader London market and what the different catchments are?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a great point. And, London is a very large city. We know that. The southeast of England is the most densely populated part of Europe. We know, I think one of the benefits of a narrow-bodied airplane as opposed to a wide-bodied airplane is we can send the airplanes into where people live and work, as opposed to them having to travel long distances around the M25 to get to airports. So we've always said, that's why we think we will have a multi-airport strategy into London. Clearly, Heathrow is the most well-known airport. Gatwick, is a airport that's less known to the US audience, but I think again the L321 LR is a perfect airplane and very convenient also for all of Joanna's friends on the south coast, from which Gatwick is a short hop, skip, and a jump. And also, both those airports have great train links. But I also want to give a shout out to Stansted. I mean, transatlantic service into Stansted with a narrow-bodied airplane, I think is something that we can make work. Again, we've seen since the Olympics that part of London grow. You've got the high tech and the biomedical corridor up there in the sort of Cambridgeshire area and that part of the world. The Stansted train is every 15 minutes on Liverpool Street. They do have a plan longer term through digital signalling to shorten that journey time, which I think I would welcome and I think would be important because it just sits over 45 minutes at the moment. If that, we can shave 10 minutes off that will be, I think, really beneficial. So I think, I think we have a number of options, and I think what I want to just make sure that people know is, our plan is to bring airplanes to where people live and work, and not make them have to trek a long way to the most convenient airport, what's most convenient for us. So I think you can expect to see blue tail fins in multiple London airports over time. We just have to start somewhere.
Great, thanks for that, Robin. Well, I'm going to draw the session to a close just to ask you a few final closing words, Robin. We've looked at the questions which people have popped into us in advance. How is your feeling today, having had the discussion? You've heard some of the input we've had from the audience. Still feeling positive? You still have the appetite for risk. The risk, indeed, you regard as something manageable for JetBlue as a business in terms of your current financial status.
Yeah, I mean, from a risk perspective, I mean, we're very, I was going to say well-managed company. That sounds a little bit also self-serving. I didn't mean it like that. But what I meant was, we came into this pandemic with the second strongest balance sheet in the US. We have, I think, taking advantage of this pandemic to build, play offense in airports like Newark and LAX, play offense in flying to London. So JetBlue, when on a normal day, is well over 1,000 flights a day. For flights to London to start, it doesn't really present any material financial risk for us at all. 30% of our network is already international, flying to very complicated markets in South America. So we're an experienced international operator. So again, from that point of view, flying to the UK presents no real additional complexity. And then it's people getting to know us, because I'm fully aware, having spent so long in the UK market and then over here for a period of time, that the brand of US airlines flying to Europe is not that good. And our goal is to change that. And people who live and work in the US know that we can do that, and we will prove over time that we can do it in the UK. I think what we want people to hear, because I know, particularly if you're in the travel trade and you're booking clients who have maybe flown the same airline for a long period of time, and you're putting them on a risk on another airline, you want to know that that airline's going to deliver for you, and you can count on us to deliver that. We have incredible people. I promise you that your customers will be giving us 10 out of 10 in our sort of service. And Joanna talked about the Mint crew and how they're selected and trained. I maybe she said this, no, I can't quite remember, but even in the back of the airplane in core, all of those will be Mint trained crew. So every customer on that airplane will be getting an elevated level of personal experience. And so it's going to be a differentiated experience from a soft product point of view. It's going to be a differentiated experience from a hard product point of view. We've been designing the seats for years. I was in a nondescript warehouse down in Kent with some of the JetBlue team a few years ago, sort of building the seat out of wood and figuring out the dimensions. And we've really tried to build a seat that, for those of us who flew a lot, believe is the right seat. And Jane, she's too modest to say, but Jane was the architect of the original Club World seat for BA, which we know how innovative that was. And it wasn't her fault that they didn't change it for a long period of time, because when it came out, it was really best in class. So look, I think we have a very experienced team here with experience of the transatlantic market. And, look, I wish we were bigger to start with. I wish we had more than two flights, but that will come. And the other thing I always say, my final sign off, is even if you are booking your clients on other airlines than not JetBlue, the fact that we started, you will enjoy lower fares on those other airlines too, because we see that time and time again when JetBlue starts flying in a market. So thanks everyone for joining us today. And my thanks to Mayo and the JetBlue team for setting it up, our partners at Discover the World. We're looking forward to working with all of our travel trade partners, whether they be corporates or TMCs or other agents. And John, again, you're such a icon and knowledgeable expert and in the travel trade. And it's been good to pick your brains along the way as well. We appreciate you hosting today very much.
Great. Well, Robin and all the team, Joanna, Jane, Dave, and Andrea, thanks for your time today. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for your time coming on this, I think, very informative webinar. Sorry about the technical glitch, but as I said, it is a reminder how much better it is to get those flights for JetBlue booked for you and your customers right away in the coming months, while there are still seats left, because the sales are going good, according to Dave. Very good.
Very good, yes. Not
very
quite good. Very good, yes.
So thank you very much, everyone. I wish you a good day, and we'll look forward to the arrival of JetBlue at the end of the summer, August into Heathrow, and September into Gatwick. See you later, everybody. Bye from me, John Strickland.